Welcome back to the Birdhouse, and we're going to continue right where we left off last night, talking running backs, right in that polarizing fourth tier of running backs, starting up with Tony Pollard at 17, all the way down to Zach Charbonnett at number 30, maybe a couple of others that I see maybe right on the fringe of that tier. Last night we were talking about Tyjae Spears and how I felt he was a sell right now. Now, I don't mean necessarily you have to get rid of him because he's just not going to produce. What I do see is that hope that he is going to be the three-down back in Tennessee, and I just don't believe in that. I see Tennessee drafting someone to complement Spears and keep Spears in that third down role where he's most effective for them, and I just don't buy into that hope of being a full-time three-down back with Tyjae. And another guy that I saw as a sell right now based on his keep trade cut value was Zach Charbonnett. He's also in a situation, well, not like Spears. Spears did probably lose DHenry. Zach Charbonnett is just stuck behind Kenneth Walker, and if Kenneth Walker isn't injured, well, then Charbonnett is going to be struggling for opportunities. He still will get the ball a little bit, but nothing that you can really count on a week-to-week basis. Also, just a hair below Zach Charbonnett is Roschon Johnson, as well as KMiller, and even Zamir White I would include in that fringe tier right behind the number 30th ranked Zach Charbonnett. When you're talking Roschon Johnson, KMiller, and Zamir White, they're all in very similar situations, all second-year guys, mind you, as well as Charbonnett and Tyjae Spears, ironically. These are all second-year guys. And what I see with these guys is just it's all based on hope. KMiller had a good game at the very end of the season. Roschon Johnson showed moments here and there last year. Zamir White finished off the end of the season strong. But the problem is that they all could get vultured touches by either a free agent that comes into town or by a draft pick that's picked anywhere in rounds 3, 4, or 5 this year. There's at least a clump of 10 rookie running backs that are all similarly talented to these guys. So I don't see any of these guys jumping into the prominent role of where they're going to see 300 touches, all right? There's nothing wrong with taking these guys in a startup, say, if you're going to grab a clump of them, like 4 or 5 of them, take your shots on them. Sure, 1 or 2 will probably end up paying off for you. But if you have these guys and are counting on them as maybe your second running back, that's not going to probably pay off for you. I don't mind having 4 or 5 of these guys and hoping that one of them hits. Sure, that kind of strategy usually ends up paying off for you. But singly trading for one of these guys isn't exactly what I'm looking to do. Like I said, there's a clump of 10 rookie running backs this year coming into the NFL that are all very similarly talented, these guys. They're going to push some of these guys down the board in a startup. I just don't see buying them individually. Now, those are the second-year guys. There are some veterans in this range as well, and there's a couple of them that I do see as buys. That would be DHenry, also Najee Harris, and Jaylen Warren from Pittsburgh. Now, you might find it odd that both guys from Pittsburgh I list as buys, but with Arthur Smith coming to town, we know they're going to be running the ball. And Pittsburgh likes to run the ball. Now they're going to slam it down everybody's throat even more. Even when they're losing, they're going to see the ball. Because if you watched any Atlanta Falcons games last year, well, I think you get my idea here. So I do see Najee and Warren both as buys. They're going to get the opportunities, especially if one of them gets injured at any point in the season. The other's going to see extended opportunities. So I think both of them are nice buys at this time. I wouldn't be against buying either of them individually in a trade. Now, just to show you an idea of some of the trades going down. Most of these ones are sort of 1-for-1 deals, maybe 2-for-1. But start off with, we can go into a 12-team Superflex tight end premium start 10, where Austin Ekeler, the 28th ranked running back right now, was traded straight up for JMeyers. Now, I got burned by Ekeler last season, I'll admit. In one league, I did give up the 108 for him in last year's offseason, right around this time. And so from that experience, I am taking that into this offseason, knowing that it's not usually a good idea to buy a veteran with a late first, all right, in that range of age. So Ekeler obviously had a rough season last year. Now, can he stay healthy this upcoming season? It's a good question. Will he be playing on a good offense next season? Another good question. So it's a bit of a roll of the dice. JMeyers, on the other hand, you get a very safe, solid option. He's going to finish somewhere between 25 and 40 at wide receiver. You know what you're getting. He's an ideal bench option as like your first bench wide receiver, maybe your fifth wide receiver if you can start that many in your league. He's just very safe and solid. So I do lean JMeyers in this deal. Jacoby's going to play more seasons than Austin Ekeler the rest of their careers. So I would lean JMeyers in this instant. That's a good buy on JMeyers. Also, from this tier, we had Tony Pollard going in a 12-team Superflex tight end premium start 10. Pollard was dealt for Stefon Diggs. Now, Diggs is quite an interesting prospect for this season. Obviously didn't finish the season very well in Buffalo. His start of last season was very good, though. And at 30 years old, he's at a sort of a crossroads in his career. There's tons of rumors saying that he'll get dealt out of town, and somebody else is going to take over the top role in Buffalo. We'll see. It's just, you have to look at contracts sometimes, okay? Is somebody really going to take on that massive contract that Diggs has right now and pay him as though he's a top 5 receiver? I just don't buy into that theory right now. So I think Diggs will be back in Buffalo, meaning he likely will be the number 1 receiver still for Josh Allen. So I do see some safe, solid production from Diggs. You have to be realistic with him, though. Maybe expect more of roughly a top 20, 25 season. You know, if he's your wide receiver 2, you're looking pretty solid. I just wouldn't count on him as your elite level wide receiver 1 anymore. Okay. If you take Diggs versus Pollard, I would lean Diggs still, because Pollard, I mean, he had a disappointing season in Dallas. Considering how well their offense was running last year, Pollard's stats just didn't add up. He had a terrible time in the red zone last year, just couldn't punch it in. And that's partially because that's not the kind of back he is. If he can find a team where he can fit in the third down role again, behind a good first and second down back, maybe squeeze in a few red zone opportunities here and there, then we might see the Tony Pollard of 2 years ago. All right. But I would gamble on Stefon Diggs versus Pollard straight up. All right. And finally, from this tier, we had a trade straight up for DHenry, also in a 12-team Superflex tight end premium start 10. This one was the DeLorean getting old King Henry straight up with Hergot for the 202. Now, if you look at it straight up from a value perspective, yes, the 202 is probably more valued in a keep trade cut scenario where you're matching them up apples to apples, I guess you'd say. But that said, I do think that King Henry has at least one more season that will outproduce any of the rookie running backs this year. And for me, I like to look at running backs on a year-to-year basis. I don't like to project out any more than 2-3 years in general in Dynasty, but with running backs especially, I just look at the next season. What can you do for me this next season? I mean, look at Tony Pollard. There was tons of excitement for him last season, heading in, being the guy. Zeke's out of town, right? Well, in one season, now he's probably going to be out of town, and we don't know even where he's going to go. Same with King Henry right now. We don't know where he's going to go, but we do know what kind of role he's going to have. He's still going to be the banger that's getting the ball inside the 5. He's still going to be getting the ball on first and second down. Who knows? It might be Derrick Henry and Tony Pollard together in somebody's backfield, right? But I do know that once you find somebody that has Hall of Fame talent like King Henry has, that they tend to last longer than other running backs. I see Christian McCaffrey as a Hall of Famer, all right? You go back over the course of time, Adrian Peterson was a Hall of Famer. He came off of a torn ACL and ran for 2,000 yards when he was 28 or 29 years old. Before that, you have Eddie George, who ran for over 1,000 yards after age 30. Same with Curtis Martin, right? You go back into the 80s when I first started playing fantasy, and in the 80s it was nuts, and the landscape was just littered with running backs. Everybody had a solid running back on their team. So it's definitely devolved for the running backs. The opportunities have dwindled down. So when you get a guy that you know what his role is, and if, let's say, King Henry does land in Baltimore, you can expect 10-plus touchdowns from him in that offense. If he takes over the Gus Edwards role, close to 1,000 yards at least, maybe more. Who knows? All right? He's only 30 years old. If you look at Derrick Henry's track record, you know that this guy will not stop. All right? Just check out some of his X posts right now, and you'll see what he's doing right now. All right? Guarantee you, he's working at least as hard as any other running back in the NFL right now. So I am a buyer on Henry. You can make your own decision on it. Sometimes your team is going into a semi-rebuild, and it just doesn't make sense to have a 30-year-old running back. I understand that. So I see this as a win-win for both teams. They're getting what they want in this deal. The 202 is going to be able to land either a nice, solid rookie wide receiver or one of the second tier of quarterbacks in this rookie draft. So I do like that as well. All right. Just want to finish it off then with the next tier, just a couple of guys that are in that tier. Didn't mention James Conner. James Conner is always a nice, steady veteran to have. Again, if you're looking at it on a one-year basis, I don't see the Cardinals being able to bring somebody in with this rookie class that's actually going to overtake James Conner. Conner likely will be the first and second down back for the Cardinals. In that next tier, you've got RoJo, as I mentioned, Jerome Ford, Kendre Miller, Raheem Mostert, another guy who just seems to keep on trucking, right? Legendary season last year, record-setting with 18 rushing touchdowns. And I do see him being able to produce again. So if you want to, if you can grab him for a third, I'd go ahead and do that. You got Chuba Hubbard in here, very polarizing. Who knows what the Panthers are going to do this upcoming season there in the backfield. You got Khalil Herbert, and then you have Devin Singletary, as well as Chase Brown, who I am very high on. Chase Brown. Joe Mixon could get cut, and we saw a lot to like from Chase Brown late last season. Again, somebody that I don't see as a full-time three-down back, but Chase Brown definitely will have a nice role with the Bengals this season. Now, getting back to Devin Singletary, as well as Dameon Pierce, they were involved in a trade where it was both of those guys. So it was the whole Texans backfield being dealt straight up for Marvin Mims. Now, on the surface, you could say, if you look at the value and add them up, yeah, the two Texans running backs are worth more than Marvin Mims. However, if you're looking at it from the perspective of who's going to be in the Texans backfield next season, is it really going to be Singletary again or Dameon Pierce? Well, Dameon Pierce is still under contract with them. Devin Singletary, however, isn't. So there's no guarantee where Devin Singletary is. In fact, there's no guarantee where either of those two guys are in 2 seasons. They both could be out of the league. All right? Marvin Mims, on the other hand, he's got a good opportunity in Denver. It's I don't love him, but he's right on the edge of that threshold where, Sean Payton did move up to draft the guy in his first draft with Denver. So he likes him. Jerry Jeudy could be out of town. Who knows if they draft another rookie wide receiver this year. So I see it as a good dart throw to try and grab Marvin Mims on the low. He showed flashes definitely last season. Personally, I don't see him ever becoming anything more than what Rashid Shaheed is in New Orleans or has been the last couple of seasons. But you never know. Sometimes those good punt returners and decent wide receivers turn into somebody like Antonio Brown, right? I'm not projecting Marvin Mims to do that, but sometimes you got to take a shot. And in this case, I don't mind getting rid of those two in the Texans backfield. Definitely don't see either of them being a full-time 3-down back for the Texans. Heavy rumors of Saquon going there based on his ex-posts, and I guess we'll just find out soon, right? It's only 2-3 weeks away, free agency period. Speaking of that, this upcoming weekend, be ready for the NFL Combine. That's all I've got for now, and as always, never stop working.